it'll be interesting to see what happens.
No, and I know that the Swiss, like the Germans, like people in many other countries, are outraged that a lot of their gold is being held either at the Fed or at the Bank of England. They'd like the gold back in their own country, and this is, of course, considered an unbelievable outrage and makes you suspicious that maybe, even if the gold is there, maybe it's owned by somebody they're not telling us.
The same thing occurred with Germany. Germany asked for it. The idea was floating around for a year or two, and it became official, and the request came, and then we said, well, no, everything is okay, but we can't give you the gold right now. That is what the Fed says. But over the next 7 years, we might, be able to do this. Now, we sort of can postulate what's going on here, but the whole thing is why did Merkel back away? And why did she, she was with the people. It seems like politically it wasn't the best thing to do to not defend the German people's gold. And my guess is that she just ran into some resistance to explain to her, do you realize what this is going to do to world finances? You could crash the dollar. You could do this, and everybody's going to want it. This could be bigger chaos than we had in 2009 if this is out. So you can't do this right now. And but if they had the gold, they could have said, well, we better, settle this and reassure everybody the gold is there and do it. But no, they don't, because it's probably locked up somewhere. Often thought that why does the Fed and our Treasury resist so strongly auditing the gold reserves here? If they have the gold and everything is above board, wouldn't it be to their advantage to just quiet us for speculating and say, hey, maybe they don't have the gold there. I wonder what's happening. No, they resist it tooth and nail, the same way, generally speaking, about auditing the Fed, to know their paperwork. If they're not doing anything, crooked, and they're not serving the interests of some powerful people, they would say, yes, come look at the books. But obviously that's not going to happen.
Ron, thinking about the Fed, what's happening with them? I noticed audit the Fed, which is, of course, a good first step. Recently passed the House again. What's your feeling about what crimes is the Fed committing at the moment, and what about the opposition to them?
Well, I think their crimes are usual, but I think we are in the midst of a historic change, because I don't believe the world has ever been involved in a total fiat currency for more than 40 years. They've had them here and there, and they come and go, and they're usually one country here or so. But since 1971, the world's been on total fiat money, the dollar standard, and I believe that what we're seeing, when the next crisis comes, or the one that's sort of formulating right now, I think it's going to prove that central banks don't have any idea what they're doing. I think it's going to be great news, and they're going to be totally discredited, which I hope our foreign policy will be totally discredited. So we should look forward to these wonderful changes where the governments who orchestrate all the wars are discredited, and when the central banking, which we've lived with for so long, is a total failure, because now how many years has it been since 2008? 6 years. All they have done is pump, and they're not getting anywhere. So the biggest thing is to make sure that the blame falls on the shoulders of the central bank, in contrast to what happened in the 30s, because we who believed in markets and thought that gold was a better monetary standard than paper, they got the blame. The intellectuals in the universities were still, they were shifting around, and they were saying, we don't need anymore. It's all the fault of the gold standard and capitalism and freedom and the marketplace. But right now, we have a chance to say, you've had your chance. You've had it not only since the 30s, but especially since the 70s, and you've done everything in the world you said you wanted to do. You've had a free reign, and all we get is more debt and less economic growth and more poverty, a shrinking middle class, and I think the problems are going to get a lot worse.
Ron, speaking of who they are trying to blame, there was an interesting column in the Daily Telegraph in London by a guy called Ambrose Evans Pritchard, who's a huge Keynesian, just a mega Keynesian, and he's always calling on the European Central Bank and the Bank of England, for that matter, to pump, and put out more money, print more money. And he said that they've been hesitant, the ECB, the European Central Bank, has been hesitant to do it, in his view anyway, recently, and he said they're being constrained by the Austrian economists. They're listening to the Austrian economists, and this is a total disaster. So I thought, hey, well, I'm glad to hear it.
Let's just hope that they really can sort it out and know which group to blame.
That's
if
right.
It comes down and say, see, we did take too much advice from the Austrian economists and then try to turn it around. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that, because I think central economic planning deserves to be. We need to get rid of that, and especially the power of a secret central bank operating. There's nothing like this ever been in the history of the world, where so much malinvestment and distribution and bad information has existed, and they've gotten away with it for a long, long time. But it's a mess, and they're not going to give up their ways. They will pursue it until the market dictates that it makes no sense, and that's what is always happening when the market wants these corrections, whether it's the stock market, the bond market, or whatever. Economic growth, that's the market saying what you're doing is wrong. So that's why the work of the Mises Institute is so important. Reach all those people and get the professors out there to change the minds and hearts of this younger generation, and that's where I think we're seeing some progress.
Ron, you've always been a champion of civil liberties and, of course, an opponent in the recent years of this horrendous NSA surveillance. I was glad to see that both Google and Apple are talking about encoding their new operating systems so that not only can't the NSA read it, Google and Apple can't read it, people will have privacy. You've always pointed out that things are reversed in Washington. The government has privacy. The people have no privacy. Should be the people have privacy. The government has no privacy.
Yeah. I saw that, and I thought this is great, because I'm always arguing that from my experience in Washington, I don't expect the politicians and the bureaucrats all of a sudden to change their ways. And the competition has to come, through technology that we can devise in the marketplace, where you just go around the government. But we're always going to be challenged. How heavy a hand will the government come down on Google if they devise something like this and say, hey, no, you're not allowed to have this privacy? But let's hope this is just the opening salvo, where privacy is not turned over to the government to protect, because they always abuse it, but it's turned over to technology and the technicians who know how to invent things to provide the privacy that everybody deserves.
I was astounded to see in Snowden's revelations. And of course, you've been a great champion of his freedom and not being jailed by the U.S. That the U.S. turns over what's called raw data. That is, everything with people's names, everything to be able to track people, know who their identities on. Everything the NSA collects in America, which would include, of course, congressmen, Supreme Court justices, the president, you and me. I mean, everybody turns it all over to Israel. Now, how come this is not a controversy? That some foreign country gets the information on every American's emails, phone calls, private conversations, and so forth, bank accounts, spending, everything.
I think it was Bamford that wrote that fantastic article on that and exposed that. But his article didn't get very far. You had to read it, on the internet someplace. But no, it doesn't get on the evening news or anything else. Well, I guess maybe there's special privileges granted to some countries as others. But our government's in there for balance. If they're given special privileges and protection for Saudi Arabia, maybe they think that equal treatment means you give special privileges to Israel, and then they go away and see, we're equal. We treat people equally around the world. But I think we should treat people equally by offering friendship, by treating and by concentrating on protecting the liberties of American citizens, and stay out of the business of all this mischief.
No, and of course you've always quoted Washington about we want trade with everyone. We want friendship with everyone. We don't want to be entangled with anybody else. We just want to mind our own business.
That'd be great someday, maybe.
Well, Ron Paul, thanks for all you do in that cause and have done for so long, and continue to lead the fight. And thanks so much for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you, Lew.
Bye-bye. Well, thanks so much for listening to the Lew Rockwell Show today. Take a look at all the podcasts. There have been hundreds of them. There's a link on the LRC front page. Thank you.